Hi everyone, it's Professor Vanbenthuysen. I just thought I'd make a video recording kind of walking you through how this course is set up since this is an online class. So if you go to your home screen, the home screen is set up with the modules. That is how I set up all of my courses. The modules are by exams, not weekly modules. So right now I have Lab Exam 1 published, and everything that you need for Lab Exam 1 will be available to you now. The first module that you see is the important information. Start here. This is going to contain the course syllabus and the course schedule. So just to run through quickly the course syllabus, which is right here. This is BSC2086L. This is a 1-credit class for Anatomy and Physiology 2. I have an error there. It says course name, Anatomy and Physiology 1. I'll correct that and get that uploaded. But this is the Anatomy and Physiology 2 lab that is completely online. So we have no meeting days or times. The first day of classes is Tuesday, January 7th. On the syllabus right here is the last day to drop this class in order to get a full refund, which is this Saturday, January 11th. And then you can still withdraw from this course all the way up until Sunday, March 23rd. Course description really is we're going to cover all of the systems that you did not cover in A&P1. So this is going to include cardiovascular, immune, respiratory, endocrine, digestive, urinary, and reproductive systems. There are no required materials for this course. The lab manuals that are going to be published and are published to Canvas are labs that I have written myself. You will have to make use of some online resources, and I include the links in there, especially for the histology portions and the fetal pig dissections. Evaluative criteria is the same. It's your standard grading scale. The 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 a B, and so on and so forth. I don't have listed on here the what I refer to as a gray area. So if you have, say, for example, an 89.4 or an 89.9, that's not technically listed as a B here. If you fall within that gray area at the end of the semester, reach out to me and I'll see if there's anything we can do, if we can open up an assignment, and maybe you could possibly obtain more points on it to help boost your grade up to the next letter grade. We can't move grades beyond 1%. So if you have an 88.7, that's going to be your final grade, which would be a B. So how this course is set up, it's broken up into just 2 grading categories. The first one's going to be your lab exams. This is worth 70% of your grade. There are 4 lab exams worth 100 points each, as well as a cumulative final, which is also worth 100 points. So you have 5 total exams. These are going to be taken online and proctored via HonorLog. They are closed notes, and I'll review that with you in a second. So there's 5 total exams. At the end of the semester, after the cumulative final exam closes, then I will drop your lowest exam grade. After you've taken your first 4 lab exams, if you have an A in the class, you can opt not to take the cumulative final. A 0 will go in temporarily until I implement the lowest grade drop. The other grading category is going to be your lab assignments. These are going to include lab submissions as well as 2 lab reports that you'll have to write this semester. Depending on the length and the difficulty of each lab, meaning how much time it's going to take you, is going to determine the point value of each lab that we have in this course. The 2 lab reports are worth 50 points each, but they fall within the lab assignment grading category. There's no extra credit assignments for this class. Every lab exam is going to have a couple bonus points available to you, typically in the form of short answer. So because this is an online course, attendance is still mandatory, but how we basically verify your attendance is by checking that you are logging into Canvas regularly. We can see that and it is visible. So just make sure every week you're going in and completing at least something, even though there are, you have, a span of a couple weeks to get things done. Late work isn't accepted because everything's available to you and open to you for at least 3 weeks, if not longer. So just make sure you get it done within that time period. So I already talked about the lab exams. There's 4 lab exams and a cumulative final. All 5 of those exams are worth 100 points. Your lowest lab exam grade will be dropped after all 5 exams have closed. This is what's on each lab exam. So the first lab exam is going to include labs 1 through 4. And information, not specific information, but general information from your lab report 1, which is on blood typing. Lab exam 2 is going to be on labs 5 through 9, 3, so on and so forth. You can read that here. The due date is firm, and it's also listed in this table and on the syllabus. All of the online exams will be open at least 5 days ahead of the exam due date. I'm working on building these exams and tweaking some things, but I hope to have all of these exams published and available to you within the next 2 weeks, so that you can, after you finish all of your lab exam 1 material, you are welcome to go ahead and move on to lab exam 2 and kind of self-pace yourself. The only thing that you have to remember is that you can't really fall behind, because once the lab exams close on the dates listed here, they won't be reopened. So you can complete things way ahead of time, but you have to complete them by the due dates. The cumulative final, because it's only a week after your last lab exam, it won't include the material or the labs that were on lab exam 4. So the cumulative final will only include labs 1 through 14. So academic honesty is a really big concern and issue when we're talking about online classes and proctoring, because cheating does happen. HonorLock does record you, does flag us, and we do go back in and watch the videos. So the best thing to do is really just don't cheat. I know things happen, or you think it's okay maybe to have a note out, which it's not, because they are closed notes, but I kind of have a list, which I'll show you in a second, of where you can lose points on an exam if you're not following the proctoring rules or if you're getting flagged. And I'll walk you through that in a second. And that's pretty much everything I have for the syllabus. So let's take a look at the course schedule and how it's set up. Again, this is more of a self-paced course. I know it's an online course, so many of you are probably working or have families, so this should be beneficial to many of you. So lab exam 1, again, already listed, or I already talked about which labs will be covered. So 1 through 4, and you do have a lab report. You have from now until February 1st to complete these. You can, of course, complete these ahead of time, but the firm due date for the submissions for all 5 of these assignments or materials that we have are going to be February 1st at 11:59 p.m. And then your exam is going to close the following day. So Sunday, February 2nd at 11:59, your exam will close whether or not you're finished. So my advice to you, because you have 75 minutes to take each lab exam, is that you start well ahead of 11:59 p.m. So everything's kind of listed here, what's going to be on there and when the exams will close. And like I said, I'm hoping to have all the lab exams up within the next 2 weeks. So they'll be open to you at that time. You don't have to wait for a certain open date. You just need to make sure that you complete them by the due date. So let's take a look at the labs themselves. The HonorLock acknowledgement, if you're in my online lecture class, this is the same thing that you did there. You just need to go in and type your name so that you understand where you can lose points on a proctored exam. For example, if you have a secondary device, if your room scan isn't sufficient, make sure you do a 360-degree scan of your work area. Make sure your face is in the screen. No other people in the room. You can't talk. You don't have headphones on. I mean, typical things that would indicate that you're cheating. I do view this, so if I know if you have a child, this happened one time, and they accidentally came into your room, you're not going to lose points for that. So I will review all of the flags that come across. If you're in my online lecture. The syllabus quiz for the lecture portion is going to be via HonorLock. So at that point, it's a really good way to take it so that I can let you know, and I will give you feedback if any flags do come up from that. Okay, the labs. If you click on each one of these lab links, I have a lot of these labs are going to have a introduction to whatever lab you're about to complete, because again, it's online, so I'm not there with you to kind of explain or give you any background information in the lab. It's not something you really need to study and know every single detail in. It's just to kind of give you an overview. Some of the things that are found in the actual lab itself that you will be submitting, that is your assignment for this class, that falls within the 30% grading category, you can find in the introduction. So I recommend that you read through the introduction if there is one available for the lab, and then you'll go in and complete the lab. The lab itself is in a Word document, so you can go in and complete the lab as a Word document. I know a lot of students like to work on iPads, so you can convert it to a PDF, and then it's fine to handwrite things on there as a PDF, or you can even print out the document and write things on there. And what you're going to do is either upload your PDF, upload your Word document, or you can take pictures of the pages that you printed out and upload those to the lab. So pretty much the bulk, all the 30% minus the 2 lab reports of your assignment grading category is just completing the lab, showing that you completed it by uploading it to these assignments, to each one of these labs by the due date. So kind of giving you an idea, like I said, I wrote these labs. If you ever have any questions on anything, there's a discussion board per each lab exam where you can go in. So the first lab is blood composition. So again, it's really good for you to go back and read the introduction or background, especially if you're not taking this at the same time as the lecture component itself. So because we're not face-to-face in a lab with slides or microscopes, a lot of the labs for the histology portion, you'll have some sort of link to a digital atlas. So here it kind of tells you, make sure you go in, you're going to use the link that's embedded here. Your goal is to identify your erythrocytes, your 5 types of leukocytes specifically, be able to identify them if given a histological image of them. So for example, blood smear. And write kind of a description. So for example, erythrocytes are the only ones that stain the pinkish reddish color. So you could put the red circles. It could be something as simple as that. And then you can either draw, sketch something where it says the sketch under that column, or you can take an image you found from the histology atlas link that I have here, or the internet. You don't have to use the resource I gave you. It's just there for you to use. And insert it in here or embed it into this document. It's totally up to you, just so you have an image. Most of your lab exams are going to be an image saying, like, for example, if we're talking about a blood smear with an arrow pointing to a cell saying, name this cell. So an image is really good, but I think writing down a characteristic or some sort of description of the cell is also useful. So for example, neutrophils, you would embed an image. Your description would be, well, how did you identify the neutrophil compared to the other 4 types of leukocytes that you have? Well, neutrophils have their nuclei are lobed, and they have 3 or more lobes. So if you see 3 or more lobes in the nucleus, you know it's a neutrophil. Alternatively, if we're talking about an eosinophil, the nuclei is also lobed, but it only has 2 lobes. So under the description, I would write 2 lobed nuclei, and then you'd put your image to the right. And for a neutrophil, I'd write 3 or more lobes, and then put an image of 1 to the right. So just ways that you can identify the cell in writing out a description. It doesn't have to be from the internet. It's your description of what it looks like. So for example, if you have to identify the pancreas on some sort of torso model that you have, to me, the pancreas looks like a cow tongue. So my description would be cow tongue. It's whatever you think it looks like, or whatever description you can give, either the cell, the tissue, or the organ that helps you identify it if you're given an image of it on a lab exam. There's also some cell models. I gave you a word bank here, so go in and try to match the cell model to the cell names that are listed up there. And this table right here, if it's included in your lab, but there's nothing for you to actually complete on this component, and most of the time I'll put nothing to do here, but make sure you know it for your lab. So how do you know what's on a lab exam? Anything that's in one of these labs, the actual lab, not the introduction and background, is fair game on a lab exam. So for example, this table that's on this first lab, you don't actually have to complete anything on it. A lot of times I'll give you the information to save you some time if it's a really long lab. But what you do need to know is the information still that's in this lab. So for example, if you have a high monocyte count, an abnormally high monocyte count, what could that indicate? Well, it could indicate that you have TB, some sort of fungal infection, or malaria. So anything in any one of the actual lab documents are basically your study guide for what's going to be on your lab exam. So that's the first one. Let me see if I can get back to the second one. You do have a lab report. You have two lab reports, one in the first lab exam module and then one in the fourth lab exam module. So this first one's going to be on blood typing. And then the second one that's in the fourth lab exam module is going to be a urinalysis. So it kind of gives you some background information. There's a video for you to watch where they actually walk you through the blood typing experiment, because we're not face to face, so we can't do this live. So this is one that's been done. And it kind of tells you, like for example here, shaded in the wells where a clumping, which is also called agglutination, where that occurs. And based off of where you see the clumping, write the blood type of the patient here and a description of how you know what blood type it is. There is some more practice stuff. If anything says for more practice, that's simply what it is. You don't have to know anything specific on the lab exam from that. And then your ABO blood group summary table you need to go in and fill out. And then it gives you what you need to do on your lab for your lab report. If you notice, the instructions for the lab report are fairly vague, and there's a reason for that. You do have some flexibility. There's not a specific word count. The only things that you need to make sure that you include are listed here. Other than that, it is worth 50 points. So obviously if you only write 2 sentences and I can tell you didn't put a lot of thought into it, you're not going to get your full 50 points. You can do a thorough job and an explanation in any one of these sections on your lab report, as long as it's well written, in 5 sentences. You can also do it very well written and include everything in 10 sentences. So it really just depends on the content that you have in each one of these sections, what your final grade will be on the lab report itself. And this also falls within your assignment grading category. So it's just a 50-point basically assignment. And like I said, the point value of each one of the labs is going to vary depending on how long it's going to take you or how much information is in there. So again, let me give you an example for the heart dissection. We are not live or together for the heart dissection, so you're going to be using a lot of online resources to test this. We use the fetal pig a lot throughout the semester. So you might see either videos or links to the same website, but you're looking for something different because we're on a different organ system for that lab. So here you just need to write, draw or insert some sort of image for these components after watching these different videos. You can screenshot where they talk about it in the videos and embed the image, because again, your lab exam is primarily going to be an image with an arrow pointing to it saying name this organ, name this structure, name this cell, name this tissue, with a couple other questions throughout. So this is, again, it's a Word document. You can do whatever you want to it or convert it to a PDF. Down here, I do have for the exam a lab exam 1 questions discussion board. So any questions you might come across as you're completing these, please post them there. I'll do my best to check the discussion board regularly. If you're a student and you see somebody else's question there and you know the answer to it, feel free to respond. The lab exam is not published yet because I'm still want to go in and edit some things. But like I said, in a couple weeks, I should have all the lab exams up, and then you can work at your own pace to complete everything. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me by email or use the Canvas inbox function. My email is on the course syllabus.